go.
Okay.
All right.
Okay, now I've been having a whole bunch of the first thing I noticed that was strange with this is I created a polyline from 0.233 to 209.
Uh-huh.
And I went over to the merger plat and it was connected from 233 to 227. I came back here and I deleted it and I redid it. I did like that like a half a dozen times and then it was okay. Now, the way I've always been doing my dimensions when I annotate bearings, I always do it in model space because I like to inverse between the points to do it.
Uh-huh.
Because I've had trouble in the past when I pick the points, I end up with a plat that doesn't close in a wrong bearing and distance.
Okay.
But I did that. And well, let me come back here. You see how I have these as
Yeah. Little leadered stuff, right?
yeah, well, it's not leadered here.
Right. Well, that's probably due to an annotation scaling issue.
Okay,
And
that brings up another thing. One of the things I've noticed here on my annotation scale, let me see if I can find that. Let me go back to here. It's got that weird scale in it again.
yeah, that 11 inches equals.
Exactly.
Huh.
I don't know, I've tried to get rid of that and I thought I had gotten rid of it, but it still crops up and injects itself. The other thing is I had all of the bearings and distances on here
Uh-huh.
and they're still on the plat, but they're no longer on the model.
Yeah, again, that's probably the annotation scaling. So let's see about setting that up. And I don't know what's causing that because I look at it here and you see down below, it says 1 inch equals 120 feet down here at the bottom.
Yeah.
Then if I go back over to your model space, it says 11 inches equals 120 feet. So let's see if we can fix that. And see, you shouldn't have two of them there, but let me see. If I can get rid of, all right, so I'll set that one current, and let me see if I can get rid of this one. No, it's not gonna let me. Let's see, allow deletions. It's not letting me change. All right, let's try 1 inch equals 50 feet. And then we'll add 1 inch equals 100 feet. Okay, fine. And 20 feet. All right, so now we've got 1 inch equals 120, 1 inch equals 150. Let's just move that up. See, I don't see that 1 inch equals 100 that it said was already there. See, 1 inch equals 1. Maybe I didn't. Maybe I didn't get that part done. Let's see. Scale with that name already exists. No, actually, it doesn't. Maybe that is the problem. If I show the XRS, let's see. That's the one I want to delete right there, and it won't let me. Let's see. Now, let's see. And that order doesn't make any difference, by the way. It's just me setting them up just so that I can see them quickly. All right, so let me get rid of that 11" equals 100.
Where does the 11" equals 120 come from?
I don't know. I don't know where the 11" equals 100 comes from either. So see, it's supposed to allow deletion of scales in use. Now, I'm showing X reference scales. If I turn that off, that goes away. So that lets me think that maybe it's in, yeah, see, now that one's back. So maybe it's in one of these. So if what is this? That should be, that's a PNG. All right, our location inset is also a PNG. Our floodplain is a PNG. So none of those are DWGs. No, let's see here a minute. Let's save this. I'm going to do an audit. No errors. Let's see if purge will let me purge scales. I don't know that it will. And just try this for a minute. Save that. We'll make sure our audit comes back zero. That's fine. All right, so let's close that. And now let's reopen it. Wow. Yeah, fine. Now if we come back to that. They sure won't let me. All right, so that's just the name that it's calling it. We could do this. Let's see. Let's go back to this one and delete. And go to this one. And change that to read. 1 inch equals 120 feet, 1 to 120. All right, so now that's at 1 to 120. Let's see our drawing setup, 1 to 120. Go back to 1. English, survey feet, that's all good. And see right there, that's what does it.
What is what does it?
When I went up to the drawing setup,
Yeah,
English 1 inch equals US feet 120. So if I set this to 60, for instance, say okay. Now you see what it's doing down here? It's making
Yeah.
that 11 inches equals 60.
okay.
So why? Let's see here, use annotated scale. Inch equals. Put that on there, so. Wait a minute, maybe. Let's see what that does. Now. These two. Hundred. 200. 120. All right. Okay, so now we'll go back here and set this to 120. Now this is staying okay. All right, so I think that was just a labeling issue. So now let's fix all this text. So this was a piece of text. And you see this paper height unit is set to 15
Yeah.
at scale. So we
Right.
want to make sure that we select that. So let's select similar. And what height do we want those bearings to be in plotted inches? You want them a 10th or 800ths or what?
Yeah, 10th.
All right, so we'll
See
say
what that looks like.
paper text height. 0.1. All right, so they're there now. All right, so now they're tiny over here because, why? Because standard scale right here, the annotation scale doesn't match the standard scale. And we'll just fix that real quick. And we'll make that 1 inch equals 120. And now we'll lock it back. All right, so now you notice these symbols are pretty huge.
Yeah,
And that's, let's see, if we've got our points. So when those points were drawn, let me see if we can get anything from this. I don't think so. No. All right, so when those points were drawn, at 32 scale, obviously not. So that's, I think that's going to be what we're looking for. So there. Let's select similar. We will select the block references and set those scales to 12. And the reason 12 is because of 12 inches to a foot. So that when we come over to here on our inch-based paper, they're now looking pretty nice. We got some wipeouts here to get to as well. Similar. All right, let me think.
I know how I've done that before. You click on the floodplain and then just drag that.
Yeah, you can, oh, I see. It's the floodplain itself that's not, yeah, so we can
Right.
set that into. Well, that didn't work. All right, let's all right, so there's a little bit of a jump right here. Is that supposed to be?
Note.
All right. That's better. Now, if we actually convert this to line and this to line and bring this to here. There we go.
It's going down the bottom.
It's all right. All right, so let's convert that to a line. Get rid of these vertices. All right, draw it there. Now we've got these line scalings. A line type scale for there may not be best. Let me make sure that's on. Make sure that's on. Set our global to 1. Go back over here and just take a look at it. If I select this, it, how does that look for the line pattern? Is it too close together? Should it be? You see how, you see how this one, the pattern is like right over here
Yeah,
compared to this one?
yeah, I think that one looks better.
Okay, so if we select these and change their line type scale to half, then that will set those up a little nicer. Okay. So far looks good.
Oh, yeah, that's a question I wanted to ask you.
Uh-huh.
If click on that again for a second. Then if you look over at rotation, it gives what the angle of that is.
Yes,
How do you make that angle with this bearing?
to match that bearing. Okay,
Yeah.
so this, if I look at this line, I want to match. Now it's a polyline, so I'm going to have to just
Inverse
draw.
it.
I need to draw a temporary line. So I'll draw a polyline. I'm just going to snap to that end point, and I'll just snap to nearest here. And I'll just take this and move it down here out of the way so we can see it, so we can get rid of it. So I want to match that. So if I look at this and I don't see actually, okay. So instead of a polyline, I think that needs to be a line. So instead of drawing a polyline, we could have drawn a line, or we could just simply explode that, and it will explode that into a line. Okay, so now that should have an angle on it. Right there it is. Okay,
Yeah,
so you can't change it by typing numbers here, but you can supposedly copy. If I right click and copy, I think it gets that number. And then if we come up here and select our text again, well, oh, I was in paper space. Yeah, okay. So since we might be rotated, I'm going to change the space of this line to make sure I'm in paper space. Maybe I am already. All right, let me just get rid of, I'm going to go back to paper space because that's where this label is in
Yeah.
paper space. So now I'll draw a line. And even though I'm in paper space, it will still snap to that geometry. So I'll snap to the nearest over here. I'll move that down out of the way. You don't strictly have to move it, but it's too easy to forget. So now I'll look at it. There's that number again. I'll right click and copy. Now I'll select the text. And in the rotation, I'll right click and paste. There you go. Did you see it move?
Yeah,
All right. So that's how to do that.
I kept trying to enter the number in and I couldn't.
You were trying to enter
The bearing of that line into that.
oh, hang on, I'm back in model space. So if you were trying to do this,
Yeah, right.
yeah. I mean, you can, and you would just type, S89D. What's that? 89,848. So S89D 8 or 048 east, I think. Yeah. So
Huh.
the way of entering that is you type 89 in the letter D, and then I put in the 0848 and it reads the 2 digits as minutes and the 2 digits as seconds.
Right.
I think you could put it in like, let's say north, 45D. And I think if you put just 15, then you can use the minute symbol and 30 seconds east. Yeah, so that way works too. So instead of using the degree symbol, you can just type whatever it is, the letter, the degree amount, and put the letter D for degrees, and then
Yeah.
put the rest of it in there. So I'll put it back to what it was here. There we go. Now we've got this line. Yeah, I've got 2 things there. So that polyline. Let's try that scale down a little bit too, just to see what it looks like. That might be too much. There we go. Looks a little better now. It's all good. We'll make sure that's in the back. All right.
I didn't finish dimensioning it yet because let me ask you a question, another question. When I did these as an annotate, let's see, annotate with leader. When I did that, it came in with the 30 over there, and I just did it. Let's see. I just went in and treated it as text and put some spaces over there to move it in the middle. I looked at the settings, but I couldn't figure out a way to change the setting.
Okay, well, we'll show you some options there. Now, one thing that you did was perfectly valid. But instead of putting a bunch of spaces in, you could do even this. So if you take all these out, just down to that, even if it was like that, if you just squeeze this up enough to where it forces it to wrap. And then if you select all this text, just like in a word processor, right up here, you can change it to
Yeah.
centered.
Okay.
All right, so that'll work. So what you did was fine, but now when you go to your annotation settings, I don't know if it has a place for this. You're going to use MText. That was good, but it doesn't give you a chance to set the centering or what, the justification.
Right.
So what you'd have to do is when you draw it, then you select it. And that's the other thing you can do is, like I changed that to center justification. You could do that over here on the left. See, right now it's justified to the top left. You could make it middle center. And then when you do this, you could just simply take out those extra spaces and it does the same thing. And then of course you might have to, just move it a little to line up with the arrow, with the leader. And I would try to that down a little bit there, and then we'll come up to here and come this way. And those things, Mike, as you know, are just purely cosmetic. Okay. And so however you wind up doing it, my rule of thumb is to always be as consistent as you can be. And that'll take care of that. And any of those ways, like when you added those spaces, that's perfectly fine. But just be aware of, just like you said, like if you want more spaces in here, then you can just do something like that and that's fine. Okay, or you could change those spaces to be a tab, so and set a tab stop every so many inches. There's no real reason to get, to turn yourself into a word processing page layout specialist. You're making a map, so however you want to do those are fine, but you have those tools available if you want them. And then I would though take this, just because even though that line is defined in there, I would sort of, point it to something visually on that line.
Right.
So, all right.
Now, what size did you change those corner markers to?
I set the scale to 12, but that's because they were already drawn and placed at whatever scale. Maybe the annotation scaling was different at the time when you created it, when you drew the point. So you can go into that and rescale your points and do all of that. But if you just, let's draw points, you have a point number that's not shown. Let's just screen pick a point. So if I put a point here, you see it's now set to be actually a little bit smaller. So if I look at that, and I'm going to look at the block reference so I can see the scaling, it says they're different. Oh, yeah, they are different because the point number is 08 and this is 0.1 for the symbols, which you set up here. This symbol scaler is 0.1.
Okay.
X is 0.08. So if we explode that, let me explode this point. These text attributes are 9.6 units tall. So if you were to take 9.6 feet So 9.6 feet. Multiply that by 12, that's 115.2. We divide that by 120, that's 0.96. Why is it 0.96? All right, let me look at this symbol. And it has a diameter of 12 right there, because it was 1 inch equals 120 feet. So 1/10 of that is 1 inch equals, or 1/10 of 120 feet is 12 feet. So that needs to be 12 feet to be 1/10 of an inch tall. So to be 0.08, yeah, 96. That's why that's 96. I did my math wrong. So that's why it's 9.6 feet tall, because at 1 inch equals 120 feet, 8/100ths of 120 feet is 96 or 9.6. Okay, so that's where that stuff gets set, is when you're doing that. Now, this one was set to like 32 and all that kind of stuff. So I just took a guess at 12 and it looked okay. Missed that one. And what was that last point we had? So 235. What was the point that we just set?
I think it was 235, but I'm not sure. Inverse to it.
Yeah, 235. There it is. So if I just simply draw from 235 to, yeah, there it is. So just to keep things clean, we'll erase 235 by number 235. Yes. Nothing in there. All right, so there we go. Now, so this text actually, instead of 12, maybe maybe 10 would have been the better scale for that, to make that exactly, because this number here looks to be the same size as that. If I let's see if I can line those twos up. Yeah, see that text is the same as that. And if I look at this text, that was 1/10 in my paper space size.
Right.
So so I really need to scale these down to 80% to match that same thing you do if you draw new points. So in fact, let's go ahead and do that. We'll select them all. Or let's just see if we can resize the point attributes by scale. And we'll go to 80% or 0.8. We'll do both by screen. All. Okay, so now to make sure they're not too small, they still look okay. Yep, and still got all that good stuff there. There we go. Okay, so yeah, that's so when that happens, when these get generated, they come in at whatever. When you do a draw locate point, it comes in at whatever settings these are set to be, and it multiplies it by what that number is. So whatever that was when it was 32, I don't know what the scale might have been, or they could have been resized. It's just hard to say. So that, and
Well,
there's
a mistake that I've been making routinely, and I don't think I'll make it after this, is when I start a job, I forget to go into the settings and do my drawing.
Yeah.
Setting.
Do you start with something that was previously drawn, or do you start
Yes.
with a? Okay.
Yes. No, I
Yes,
just do a save as and then I redo the
right.
CRD file
Yep.
and then I erase everything that's in it.
Yeah, and that's perfectly fine to do. Just you do need to remember to go up and change that though. So when you're working, you don't have to resize all that stuff.
Right. I
Mm.
find that that's easier because most of my notes are all the same or similar.
Yeah, and you can just use them. One of the things that I do like that, if I find that for whatever reason, if I do need to start fresh, I'll open one of the old drawings and leave it there and work on my new drawing. And if I need to borrow something from the old drawing, I'll click over to it, I'll select what I want, and then I'll right click and do a clipboard copy. And then I'll
Right.
go back to my drawing and do a paste, a clipboard paste.
Yeah. I'm just not comfortable with any of my templates.
Understood.
And I don't know why, but I'm not. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's supposed to be solid.
yeah, that is supposed to be, right?
Yep.
Okay,
It's
good job.
fine.
Yep. Very excellent. Down here, you've got a couple of lines superimposed, which may or may not be okay. See, that is that overall shape, but you've also got, that dash line in there. Do you normally like to see when you get over top of a multiple selection, you'd like to be able to select it?
Yeah.
All right, so that is what's called selection cycling. And you can either turn it on or off. So if we turn it, now it's set to -3. So why, I don't know, because sometimes a command will change that.
Okay, 22 already had that set up. So 23, I guess, didn't. I hadn't noticed it yet.
And so selection cycling, I wish they would put it in a thing down here on the bottom like AutoCAD has, but they don't have it there. See, it should be one of these modes, but they
Yeah.
don't have it here. So even in 11, and that's a IntelliCAD thing, that's not a Carlson thing. So it's not in there, but you have to turn it on. And I have to sometimes even look this stuff up to see what it is. So if I do the selection cycling, let's see. It controls the displays. So if it is 0, they're disabled, an icon displays. If it overlaps, both visual aids, the icon and the list are enabled. So that's what we want is number 2. And a list displays when you select. So we need it to be either 2 or 3. And that's stored in the registry. And there's something about the minus that I read once what that meant. And I think it was this selection cycling mode. No, say control click, multi-click. 0 is control click, 1 is multi-click. 2 is shift space. So we want that to be 1. So selection cycling mode. Let's say 1 and selection cycling 2. Now, you see that little double frame, that little blue frame?
Yes.
That tells you there's 2 things. If you click, now you get to choose. So you've got one on the line called adjoiners. You've got this other one thing called plat 4. That's the layer it's on.
Right.
So now the adjoiners, if you look at that, that's here as well. So, and it,
Okay, well, that line that has 2 lines on it actually isn't going to be in the plat.
this one here.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, but one thing that you can do, like if you don't need that line running directly into here, but you want to keep these,
Yeah.
then just simply erase that segment of that polyline. Okay, and so we would go up here and find our erase polyline segment, or go to edit polyline utilities, remove polyline segment. Then you pick, it'll let you pick that line. So we'll take that one. And so now that original line is just left with this piece and this piece,
Right.
and this one is just that. Okay. So but like you said, it's not even showing down there, so it didn't matter. But just a little, couple of further things if you need to control those. But that's, especially when you're doing plat work, it's real easy because you need to have multiple lines on different layers sometimes to, if you're doing placement tweaks or like here's a case, like normally you'd think you would draw a line from here to here to here, but this needs to be a separate piece. So as you know,
Right.
just make that a separate entity and you give it a different style.
Right.
So that part's good. So I think you've got a good handle and good understanding on all of that. So,
Let me ask you another question here while I've got you. When I created this label, each one of these is a separate piece of text. I
Right.
just went draw text, standard text, and then I did each one of those individually to make it kind of fit along that. Is there a better way to do that?
possibly, and yeah, this got the job done, but there's another thing that you can do is, see, that's one feature, that line, that edge. So if you go to draw text and say along or text on polyline,
Yeah.
and you can do it on arcs and all that kind of stuff. But if you just do it on a polyline, now it sets this up a little weird. So I'm going to, let's see what I can say. Approximate location, 100-year flood plain. All right, so that's going to be our text. There's our size. This is the offset. So that's how far it'll be off the line. Let's bring that back to not quite a 1/4 inch. Will be a little bit. Use our current properties. I'm going to change that and set this to be on.
Floodplain.
Yeah, is that what it's?
Yeah.
There we go. Floodplain. Standard scale, slide text on screen if we want. We're going to go above the line, below the line, or on the lines would be above it. And that'll be fine. We'll say, okay. Let's now pick this line. And now there it's put it in. And if we, so pick a point for slide. So now it's just put it there. So if I want to pick a point starting here, well, let's do it once again. Now pick, you could do multiple ones. I'm going to undo that last one here. Oop, I guess it undid the whole thing. One more time. So text along a polyline, there it is. We'll pick this. And if I pick this up here on that segment, it puts it out there, but it says pick a point for a slide. So if I wanted it to start down here, see, that brings it back here.
Yeah.
What it does is it follows that line and it'll go around and as you saw before, it changes directions up here. Okay.
Now, what did you do to get that to pick a point for slide? Was that a right click?
No, I just picked a point. It was, here, let me come up here and get rid of these. So when you see when you do select it, now I'll come back to your question in just a second, but when you select it, you see up here, it is a block.
Yeah.
Okay, so it takes all that text, turns it into a block so that it knows how to follow this around. So when we do that, I'm going to let you do it now. I'll let you drive. Now I'm in model space. That's where you want to be on that. So it reads that. You don't have to be, but I mean, that's where it makes sense to be. So go ahead and choose that draw text. on polyline. There you go. So then you fill out your text and it stays from what you last had it. And you see that, oh, sorry, press escape. Just escape now, just run the command again. Okay, now, partway down below the middle there, it says slide text on screen.
Yeah,
That's what makes it ask you for that. If you don't have that checked, it just plops it down where it reads where you picked the line.
okay,
So if you do that and then you say, okay, then you're gonna pick the line and you can pick it anywhere, it doesn't matter where. And wherever you pick it is where it puts it down. Now look at the prompt. It says, pick a point for a slide. And so you just move the cursor to where you want it to start along that line.
actually, it looks pretty good where, where
Yeah,
it is.
I think so too, because it wraps around those corners. It does very nicely. So you can just press escape and get out of it and you're done. One more time, I think. Or enter to end. There we go. Yeah. Okay. So now if you double click that, I don't know if it will, it might bring up some edit.
Double click this?
Yeah, if you double click it, let me see what it does. Now, if you just say, okay. No, all right, say okay to that. And I guess it's not. Let's see if it's the last. Yeah, that was just, it found out what it was, but I was just wondering if it would have let you edit that at all, and it doesn't really. And it says it can't contain that asterisk as a name. So you could go through, change its name. You can't change it here. You'd have to do a block rename command. But you can do a couple things with it here. You can scale it, make it bigger or smaller here. You can change its line weight, except you're using a system font, so that has no bearing on it. You can change its layer, color, all that kind of stuff, okay? Easiest is to simply redo it if you need to move it or something. Okay?
Right.
But again, like I said, what you did before was perfectly fine. There's nothing wrong with doing it that way too. It's just a little more tedious. Because you have to do it, you have to figure out where you want to break it, how you want to treat it, that kind of stuff. Now, that being said, that you couldn't change those. Let me look if there's a Carlson command that will do it. New text. I think these are things that have to be text only. I don't think it's going to allow us to, like if I choose edit text, yeah, see, it's not, whoops, well, let me get model space. So because we did it with a Carlson command, let me see if I can edit that. No, see, it says it's not a text, M-liter dimension at def or a block with attributes. Okay, so that's fine. What about if we now those are all just text. Come back here. I don't think there's any editing commands in here. Yeah, so I think what you need to, I think certainly the easiest to remember is to just redo it. And I think that's all the options you have there. Is if you need to redo it, just redo it.
Right.
All right.
Okay.
So. Anything else?
No, I think that's it. Thank you very much.
You're most welcome. Now I will give you a little stylistic pointer here.
Yeah.
River names are quite often done with an italicized font and
Okay.
and sometimes without being all caps. And again, that's purely cosmetic. So you could change that, you know, retype it to be only a capital S, capital R, make it an italic font. You know, it's, again, I'm not gonna change it. That's perfectly fine. I think we'll just leave it like that. But now, if the review agency calls you up and asks you to sing country roads because you got Shenandoah River, then be prepared.
Right.
All right. And let me take a look at your inset there. Looks good. That's fine. And come Friday, I hope to give you some really nice tools that you can use here. I'll give you that download and some instructions on where to bring that data. I've been trying to wait on Carlson to get back to me on a couple of issues I've got with them. We've got our workaround now, so we can deal with it with these two counties. But I want to be able to just link up to the West Virginia University server and download anything that we want, you know, floodplain boundaries, streets, whatever. So, but anyway, we'll attack that when we get to it on Friday. All righty.
Okay, that sounds good.
Yep. And what's your email? I'll send you, you know, links to download the data, and I'm going to send you two folders, one that says Jefferson County, one that says Berkeley County, and just put those in a central location where you can always go to them. All right?
Okay.
I
I
think
can
you
put
may
them
already,
in that folder that we created, right?
yeah, in fact, you could just take those and go into them and erase everything that's in them, or even just delete the folders and copy these new folders right back in that same location.
Okay,
Just in case. I wouldn't mix and match stuff because we may have some things that we've changed in there, and we'll do that. But I'll get that up to you and get you a link before Friday.
okay, sounds good.
All right, my friend.
Thank you, sir.
You are most welcome. I will stop my sharing or stop my remote control. We stopped your sharing. I will stop the recording and I'll send you this link.